Before we get started on today's episode, I want to remind you about 1 month of conversation starters. I created this specifically to help mompreneurs know what to post on Instagram to actually get comments, because I have seen way too many mom business owners spending so much time creating content just to get crickets in the comment section. You can get your free 1 month of conversation starters content calendar at sociallyyours.biz/content-calendar. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mompreneur Mastery. Today, I get to share with you a really cool episode with Kelsey Romine. Kelsey is a website designer, and she creates websites for busy coaches and service providers that have a strong strategy and a custom design to attract your ideal clients and get them to take action. Kelsey is also a busy mom. She has 3 kids under 5 years old, so she totally understands the need for high impact strategies that get you results without spending a ton of time having to constantly update your website. I really loved having this conversation with Kelsey because so much of it is focused on the strategy she uses. And in this episode, she talks about how to focus on the user experience on your website so it guides them to take the action you want them to take, whether it's signing up for a discovery call or getting the sale, whatever it is. She has a lot of good tips for you that you can use to optimize your own website. Something I definitely did after we finished recording this episode, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. Welcome to the Mompreneur Mastery podcast, where we share actionable Instagram strategies that fit into a busy mom's schedule so that you can get more engagement, more leads, and more sales in less time so you can spend more quality time with your family. I'm Sydney O'Brien, an Instagram strategist who started my business with 3 kids under 5 and found a way to do it without sacrificing quality time with my family and only working 2 to 3 hours a day. I love helping other mom business owners find that seemingly impossible mom work-life balance instead of spending too much time creating content that isn't getting them the results they want. If you're an overwhelmed but very ambitious business owner and you want to strategize the heck out of your Instagram account so that you can save time and make more sales, you're in the right place. All right, today I get to talk to Kelsey. Kelsey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, I am a WordPress website designer, but I wasn't always. I actually was a teacher for 8 years before my first baby, and having him kind of changed my world a little bit. Not that I wasn't I liked teaching, but I was already kind of like, is this where I'm supposed to be? Is this, I was already kind of questioning things. And then when he came into my life, I was like, nope, something needs to change. I need to do something different. So I kind of learned how to start freelancing, and that took me into the direction of web design, and I have loved it for a few years now. Since then, I've added 2 more babies. So now I have 3 kids that are 5 and under. So it's very busy. They make me a little nutty, but they're the reason that I started business in the first place. And so we just keep moving forward and we do what we can on a daily basis. So my business around them and their schedule and work in the pockets of time that I can find.
Yeah, that is very similar to what I do. I have 3 kids that are 6 and under. They're 3, 4, and 6. So yes, also living the hectic, crazy kid-filled life and just having business that I can do around that and have it fit in while still making sure my kids' needs are met is pretty awesome.
Isn't it? I just love that this exists for us. It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I follow you on Instagram, and I have for a while, and I'm seeing you talk about user journey on websites. Can you explain what that is? Because that was the first time I'd heard that term was from you.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the term that I use. I mean, other people probably call it something different, but to me, it's how people move through your site.
Mm-hmm.
So what direction do you want them to take on your site? How do they move through it? What page do they go to? And how can you kind of direct them to the pages that you want them to get to? So if they come to your website, on their homepage, where do you want them to go from there? Where do you want to lead them? and think about that as you like kind of map out your website and where you put links or buttons and like the directions that you can take from them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. So thinking in my mind, like I love examples. So trying to relate it to like Instagram,
Yeah.
where all of your posts work together to create kind of like a funnel to eventually lead them to the
Yeah.
sale. I'm assuming
Hmm.
it's very similar, just on your website instead of
Yeah.
another app. Gotcha.
Yeah. And it's sometimes it's like going more than one direction, right? So
Mm,
if they come to your homepage, ideally, like let's say you're a service provider and you want them to book a call with you. That's like your number one thing you want them to do. Ideally, they come to your homepage, they see a button or a link to go book a call with you, and they go and do that. That's like
mm,
the ideal journey through your website, right? But there might be some alternate journeys to consider. Like maybe this person needs to learn more about you first. So maybe you can lead them to your about page so that they can really connect with you. And then they'll go to that main call to action to book a call. Or they want to learn more about your services first. They'll go from your homepage to your services or your work with me page. And then from there, will they book a call? So it's kind of just like the direction to which you want them to go. It is exactly kind of like a funnel them to your main call to action, if that makes
mhm.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot more avenues to get there, it seems.
Yeah. And it depends on how many different things you want to have on your website and like
Mhm.
how many pages you have and how many different things you offer them of how big that can get. But if you kind of keep it simple of home about services and kind of like a contact or a call link or something, then you have less. But once you add a blog in there, can you lead them to that call to action through your blog or a podcast? Like, can they get to your call to action from, like a podcast episode, show notes, or something like that? So, yeah, it can get big and hefty at different times, but it doesn't have to either. Hmm.
And it once it's done, I mean, there's a little upkeep when you add new things, but like the work you put into like making that user journey, does it help more long term?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any work that you put into it up front, strategically wise, right,
Mhm.
is going to help you in the end. Ideally, your website's then working for you in the background, then you needing to constantly keep doing more and more and more, right? Like it's
Yeah.
do more upfront, plan for it so that you can do a little bit less. And like you take into account the other marketing avenues that you have. So let's say you're really active on Instagram and you're constantly like sending them to a landing page or sending them to your website through a post or something. You want to make sure that that website is working for you and is doing that hard part of like continuing to market you for you and
Hmm.
getting them to take that call to action that you eventually want them to take. Yeah. So it all kind of works together,
Yeah, that's interesting. So when you say working for you, is there a way, an easy way to like test, like see that other than just actual sales?
That's going to be your best bet. But I also like testing with people, like whether that's just a family member or a friend, great.
Mhm.
If you can actually test it with somebody in your like ideal audience or your ideal target market or something and see how they navigate through it, like that's really helpful to actually see how somebody that you're trying to attract works through your website would be one of the better ways, even, I think, to make sure that it's working for you.
That makes a ton of sense. And I never would have thought of that, but now
I
I
know.
really want to do that. Like,
It's like the
yeah,
simple things, that we don't
right.
always think about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Makes so much sense. I definitely need to do that now. Now I'm like wondering, oh man, have I made mistakes?
I feel like there's always room to improve every aspect of business, but
Yeah.
it's sometimes I also think it's okay to like leave it be and see how it works. And then you
Yeah.
can adjust and fine tune as needed too.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
always good. What do you think the biggest mistakes are that you see on websites for service providers have?
I don't know about biggest, but like one that I see that drives me kind of crazy. And maybe this is just as a mom who's like on Instagram when she's trying to feed children and her baby and things like that. And I'm like
Yeah.
looking at websites and things on my phone, like I click through them on Instagram and I get frustrated when they're not mobile optimized,
Mm,
and not even just like, can I read everything, but actually making sure, and this is kind of tricky because people don't know it. They sometimes look at their website on mobile and think, oh, it looks good. Test like the things that are clickable, test the links, test the menu, test the button. Because sometimes on mobile, like transparent things end up overlapping with those buttons or those different
mm,
pieces that can be linked out to something. And you don't know it because it looks fine, but they're actually not clickable. I find that really frustrating when I'm the one on my phone all the time. And then that's just as a
yeah.
mom and like constantly doing things from my phone. I'm sure it does great on desktop, but that is one thing that I'm like, I can't even get to the point of working with this person or starting to work with this person without like from my phone. I would need to go to my computer. And then at that point, I kind of moved on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I know I would have forgotten to like go back to it once I get to my laptop.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes a ton of sense. This was like something I realized maybe a week or two ago, and I like slowly had to go through all my pages and redo it because I didn't realize, yeah, like you said, those transparent things covering up buttons and
Yeah.
stuff. I had
hmm
no idea.
Yeah. Like certain sections, like they don't have a background. So you don't know that they're like covering. And then
Yeah.
they're not clickable. And then it's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do here? I guess the other thing is I get frustrated when I'm constantly like confused on a website. Like how many
Mhm.
different pages do I have to get to that call link or to learn about your services? Like make it intentional, I guess is the right word, of
Mhm.
where you're trying to get people to so that they're not confused. Like if they're sitting there confused on a website, then they're just going to click out.
Right. So do you think less is more then when it comes to like the number of pages and things?
Sometimes, and it's not necessarily that you need less pages as it is giving them the opportunity to get to the important ones, right? So kind of keep your menu nice and clean. Like, can you have drop downs? Sure. But like, we don't need, 20 different links in the menu for, working with somebody. I think sometimes less is more, I think is, yeah. But don't not have a blog. Blogs are each a page. They're, individually. Like every blog post has their own page. That's a bunch of pages on your website, but
Right.
you want
Yeah.
those. But do you need to link every blog post in like a menu? No.
Y-
You link the blog page and then they can navigate from there. So it's kind of just thinking about how you want people to navigate and what other pages you want them to kind of stumble upon.
Mhm. That's super interesting. It's kind of similar for Instagram. The way
Yeah.
I'm like relating it in my head is like it has to be so simple and like transparent and like clear, basically, because
hmm
everyone's attention spans now are so super short. And if you don't be like, this is exactly what's going to happen if you do this, like make it super easy to understand and transparent, they're just not going to follow through. And then you're not going to get the lead or the sale or the like, whatever it is.
Exactly. Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
and that's another thing is like knowing what happens next, I feel like is really important to have on your website. Like
Hmm.
they might want to know, well, what happens after I book this call? Is that, am I locking in a service? Is this a free call? Is this, what happens after that? So even if you could like list out the next steps to working with you and what they can expect after they book that call, I think is helpful and transparent. It tells them exactly what they should expect from continuing to work with you.
Yeah. I love seeing that on other people's pages, like knowing exactly what's going to happen next. It
Yeah.
helps like ease my anxiety.
Yes, I know because so
um,
many of us kind of feel that, like we're
yeah.
like, okay, well, what do I do? And maybe it's like the whole like nervousness of like shopping online too. Like I'm always like,
Yeah.
did I type in my address correctly? Like when I'm
Hmm.
buying something, I get so anxious when I click like place order. It's like the
Yeah.
same thing. It should be a little less anxiety filled to just click to book a call. Like you're going to chat with somebody. Let's know what happens next so that we don't feel like this is like make or break.
Yeah, and I feel like it helps build, like, trust with that person
Yeah.
too,
hmm
especially if it is, like, something like a discovery call. You wanna have that trust there so they're more likely to actually hire you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. You're giving me, like, so many things that I wanna check on my own website now because, like, I say I love seeing this, but I don't know if I've ever actually like consciously been like, oh man, I should put these next steps on my website on like all of these things. It's just very easy to forget.
I know. Well, and if you don't, sometimes you kind of leave your website and you kind of set it and forget it, which is fine at times, but then it's always good to like circle back and make sure that it is what we want it to be doing. It is
Yeah,
reflective of how we want to conduct business and things like that too.
for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely that person who will walk away and then like never remember to
Yep.
actually circle back.
I'm the
I have
person that
if I
like
don't
has
write it
to,
down.
yeah, write it down
Yeah.
or I email myself if I'm like out and about. I'm like, don't forget to do this.
Yeah. I
Add
have
it to my
like
to-do
3
list.
different places I take notes, and then I have to remember, like, where
Where?
I left
Yep.
the certain note to
Yep.
circle back to.
I do that with a calendar. Like, why do I have Google Calendar and a notebook with like my week laid out and ClickUp? If like, why am I this way? This is the way I am.
I do the same thing. It makes life interesting,
Yep. I just think
for
there's like a
sure.
lot of things to like keep track of. And I feel like the more often I
Yes.
see it, maybe I won't forget them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always a million things to keep track of, especially
Yes.
as, like, a mom and a business owner,
Yep.
for
Hmm.
sure. So, since we work with a lot of moms, is there a way to make your website more attractive specifically to that demographic?
I think so. I think, like we kind of already talked about, as a mom, I'm like constantly clicking to people's websites from Instagram or from even from like an email. If I'm on their email list, like I'm clicking from a phone. And if I'm immediately like seeing a whole bunch of text that's like all the same size, all the same color, all the same font, then I feel immediately overwhelmed. I think there are a lot of ways that you can break up that same content to make it easier for us to like consume, especially on a mobile device, but even on desktop. Like a big chunky paragraph. Can you say the same thing with less words? Can you switch it up a little bit to make it easier to read with just like reducing the amount of content? If you can't, totally understand. Can you display it differently? Can you bold or italicize something that you really want to stand out? Can you break up the text to separate paragraphs? Even if there's like one sentence that you really want to like highlight in that paragraph, can you have, normal text and then like really bold and even change the font or color of like that sentence that you really want to highlight? And then put your remaining font or the remaining text of that paragraph. Other things is breaking up pages with images. Don't just have text everywhere. Can you break that up with images side by side? Can you use images as a background to a section and then like have a white background and then have a colorful background? Can you like break it up so that when we're reading through, it gives us time to take like a little bit of a pause? And those types of things make it a little bit more skimmable. Can you change something to have bullet points instead of it being a full on paragraph? Just different ways to display content and to break it up and to like have some breathing room around it, even like adding white space around sections or even between lines of text gives us just time to take a beat when we're reading through a
Yeah.
website. And if you think about that being good on desktop, think about how much that affects somebody reading it on mobile, right? Like they're not just scrolling through paragraph after paragraph. Can they see this like really bold, different color heading that you want them to see or the sentence that you want them to see? Can they read the bullet points faster than they could in a paragraph? So it's just like thinking about how quickly moms, especially, need to absorb that content, especially when they're really busy, their kids are at home, everyone's yelling at them that they need something. How can you make it easier for them to get your information and know that they're in the right place and they want to work with you? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because as you were saying that, I was like, no, yeah, this is exactly what I do. If I'm on the phone, it's like kids are probably yelling in the
Yep.
background. Someone's asking for me to open a snack. I'm not taking the time to read like these novel length sales pages.
Yes.
I'm skimming. I am
Yep.
like scrolling quickly and skimming.
Yep. You want to see
Yeah.
like the highlights. You want to know, how is this going
Mhm.
to change my life right now?
Yeah.
Not, 1,000 words in one small little section that I don't have time to read, like we want
Right.
to know immediately, how is this going to affect us? How is it going to help us? That type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Instagram is very similar. I have talked before about making it readable and accessible, and you can't do as much on Instagram and
Yeah.
captions with like you can't really bold and
Right.
highlight and all
Yeah.
of that.
Hmm.
So breaking up short paragraphs and bullet points, all of those things, a lot of that
Yep.
translates. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. As soon as I see a big, long, super wordy caption, I'm like, I
I'm
don't have
done.
time. But if
I'm just
they
gonna
put those
scroll.
same words spread out sentence by sentence, or with a little emoji to do bullets, I almost
Mhm.
always read those. It's just changing the look of it to make it a little bit easier for us to consume.
Yeah. Those little changes go a long way.
Yeah, exactly.
I find when I write long carousel posts with a
Hmm.
lot of text in them, I always do way too much text in the actual slides at first. I'll
Yeah.
do a draft and then I'll have to go back and pare it way down so
Yes.
it's more readable.
Yes. Well, I think the same thing goes for a website. If you're building your own website, put
Mhm.
all of the information somewhere that you want to have on a website, even if it's just a Google Doc of brain dump ideas. And then come back to it later and be like, wait, can I say less with this? Am I getting my point across in a different way? And how can I break this up? It's okay to walk away
Yeah.
and come back to it and try and make it simpler.
Especially as a mom, because it's very rare
Yes.
you get to get through a whole project in one sitting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. And sometimes we just want to be like, I can help you do so many things, but maybe we just need to say it simpler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that's something I'm working on a lot. I always have the urge to go into huge amount of detail.
I know. And we want to,
And it's
but
just
that's,
I don't.
that's why they hop on a call with us. Let's
Yeah,
talk about it more quote unquote, face to face.
right. Well, you have given me a ton to think about, and I'm sure the listeners as well. This has been super insightful. And now you have a freebie to share with them, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It kind of covers some of this with some more. It's a checklist that kind of says some different things that you can change up on your site to have some, ideally immediate impact. Things like that we kind of talked about on here, with a lot more details on there, with even more options to impact your website today. I mean, depending on if you have the time to sit down at your website and mess with it today. But I really wanted to give actionable steps that you could take on your website, no matter what platform you're on. You don't have to be on WordPress to take these different actions. So yes, that is called my web design mistakes checklist.
Perfect. I'm gonna get it for sure. That sounds awesome. I
Awesome.
love when it's in a checklist format, so I can
Yeah.
like I said, I can't get through everything in one sitting, so I can do some and then walk away and come back when I can have a few minutes to work on something else.
Yes. Yes. And it's
Yeah.
not even like you have to do all of them. You could do one of them and see, does that make an impact for my viewers? And then come
Mhm.
back a month from now and do the other. It can be a living, breathing document for you.
Yeah. That sounds great. I'm really excited to try it. I'm gonna put the link to it in the show notes so you can go ahead and download it. And then can you tell everyone where they can follow you on Instagram and what your website is?
Yes. My website is just kelseyromine.com. And then on Instagram, it's at kelsey.m.romine.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If this content was helpful for you, if you found it valuable, I would love it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts so that other mom business owners can find this episode and get the same tips and strategies to support their business and their families. If you have questions or just want to connect, you can find me over on Instagram. My handle is @socially.yours.strategist.